Hello and welcome to ASE's webinar series. I am Kat Lyons, ASE's Healthcare Education Manager. Today's webinar is entitled, All About FASE, What You Need to Know. Before we get started, I have a few housekeeping items that I'd like to go over with you. As this is a live webinar, you have the opportunity to have your questions answered by today's speakers. To ask a question, use the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. Feel free to ask a question at any point during the presentation. Questions will be addressed at the end of the webinar. We will do our best to ensure that all questions are answered. However, this may not be possible depending on the number of questions asked. A handout will be made available when the enduring webinar is posted. If you experience any technical problems during the course of this webinar, please submit a message using the Q&A feature. We will have a technical expert there to help out with whatever problems you might have. I'd now like to introduce tonight's speakers. Dr. Gregory Tatum is currently Associate Professor at the Pediatric Cardiology Duke University Medical Center and serves as the Medical Director at Duke's Children's Specialty Services of Greensboro. Dr. Tatum is an American Society of Echocardiography FASE member, serves as the ASE Training and Certification Advisory Committee Chair, and American Society of Echocardiography Foundation Board member. Our first speaker, Jennifer Warmsbecker, has been an ASE member since 2008 and FASE since 2013. And is currently an assistant supervisor at the Echo Core Lab in Rochester, Minnesota. Jennifer has also served on the ASE Education Committee and co-chaired the ASE FASE Committee. Dallas Lyons, ASE's Associate Manager of Member Services, joins us this evening as the staff liaison for the FASE Committee. Without further ado, please welcome Jennifer Warmsbecker.
Thank you, Kat. It's a pleasure to be here with everyone this evening. I'd like to start out by going over some of the benefits to being FASE. As a FASE designation is a peer-reviewed process that illuminates your dedication to the field of cardiovascular ultrasound. Echo practitioners in all specialties who demonstrate proficiency and extraordinary commitment to not only the field of cardiovascular ultrasound, but are also dedicated ASE members deserve recognition. Your performance stands out, and so should you. If you are a student or a fellow, a resident, you are not currently eligible to apply for FASE. However, there are steps you can take now to prepare to become FASE once you have completed your training. Next slide, please. Earning your FASE designation puts you on the path to ASE leadership. Volunteering for committees is open to all ASE members. However, if you want to chair or co-chair a committee, you must have their FASE designation. Next slide. Ways to get involved in ASE include joining a committee. You can influence the creation of guidelines and standards, products, and more. Serving on a council gives you the opportunity to be involved in one or more subspecialty group. There are opportunities to network and share ideas through Connect at ASE. Another way to be involved is with reviewing articles for the Journal of American Society of Echo, or with CASE, which is ASE's online case reports journal. Next slide. There are many benefits to becoming a FASE. From a professional and leadership perspective, as mentioned before about serving on committees, FASE status provides the option of serving in a premier volunteer positions. FASE fulfills the criteria of being nominated to ASE's board of directors or serving as a committee chair or co-chair as mentioned before. FASE provides access to early registration, notifications for ASE meetings, and when you attend the scientific sessions, the FASE Lounge allows you for unique networking and VIP amenities, and they have to say they have pretty good luncheons. FASE also bolsters your CV and your professional documents. Next slide, please, Dallas. Now that you have your FASE designation, ASE wants to recognize you and your accomplishments. A certificate and lapel pin will be given to you for display. Your name will be listed in the Echo e-newsletter and breaking news post on the ASE websites and also on social media. Your name will be listed by state on ASE's seemyheart.org website. so the general public can recognize this achievement and special designation. At the scientific sessions, you will be recognized during the annual business meeting, and special FASE ribbons are available to you for your name badge. Next slide. In the fall, a call for volunteerism for committees is sent to all ASE members. Selections are made yearly by the ASE president in the spring, and your assignment runs from June to June in conjunction with the ASE annual scientific sessions. Assignments are often renewed up to 3 years, at which point volunteers are rotated off to allow opportunities for others. Next slide. ASE has many committees along with councils and specialty interest groups. When completing the application, you can indicate areas in which you are interested in serving. I've had the pleasure of an opportunity to serve on the Education Committee and now the FASE Training and Certification Advisory Committee. And then this last year, I've served as a co-chair with Dr. Tatum. And he's going to talk about how to become a FASE, what the steps are for FASE. So I'll turn it over to you.
Sorry. Thank you, Jennifer, for that introduction. FASE, as Jennifer mentioned, really is your ability to shine within our professional environment. So if ACE is something that you're extremely excited about, becoming FASE really helps you become more engaged within the organization. But then you get to the confounding part of how to go through the application process. And it actually is fairly straightforward if you break it down, but when you first start looking at it, it can be quite confusing. So there's a few things that are common for everybody. So we have 3 different tracks based on if you're a physician, a sonographer, allied health professional, or if you're a scientist researcher. No matter which of those tracks you're in, if you apply, you're going to have to upload documentation of your certification. You're going to have to upload information about your continuing education. And the continuing education has to be specific to cardiac ultrasound, or to ultrasound, cardiovascular ultrasound. The requirements for physicians is 15 hours within the last 3 years. For sonographers and allied health professionals, it's 15 hours in the last 3 years. Everyone has to upload up-to-date CV and then 3 letters of support. And then the completed checklist is where things get a little bit different between your different pathway to applying for FASE. And then at the end, everybody also has to upload their application fee. So when you're thinking about applying, if you go to the ACE website, there's a subpage that's asecho.org/FASE that will actually link you to each of the different checklists for your pathway, as well as give you information about letters of support. So almost everything we're going to go through tonight, you can easily access from there. And it's not something you have to write down. If you Google ACE, go to the website, and then down at the bottom, click on FASE, it'll take you right where you need to be. Another good piece of reference is this email address, face@asecho.org, that goes directly to Dallas. And as you go through the application process, if you have specific questions, if you're not sure if you're really going to meet the criteria, you can reach out to him and he'll help guide you through the process. So we really want it to be a successful process for everyone who is looking to apply. So again, depending on if you're a physician, allied health professional, or scientific researcher, there's going to be slightly different pathways that you go down. No matter which pathway you go down, there's some things that are in common. So for everybody, there's a credentialing section that is going to give you 6 to 10 points. In a second, I'm going to go through specifically for physicians because it's more confusing for them. They can potentially get 6, but up to 10. For the allied health and sonographers, as well as the scientist researcher, if you qualify for credentialing, you're going to get 10 points. From there, you have to get enough points to reach 12 from a combination of education, research, and leadership or volunteerism. Everyone has to get at least 1 point from 2 of the 3 categories. So if you get 10 points from credentials, 2 points from education, you still have to get 1 additional point from either research or volunteerism. So this is going to walk us through the physician pathway, which actually has 2 sections for credentialing, unlike everybody else where there's just 1. And then section 3 gets us through the education, research, volunteering. So for all physicians, you have to have a license in good standing. You have to have ACE membership for current and previous year. And those 2 things are true for everybody, as is the proof of certification. So for people that are going through training, if you are an active member this year, you're graduating this year, you can't apply this year, but as soon as you've graduated, you renew your second year, or if you've been an active person for 2 years in your fellowship, as soon as you become and you transition from the fellow in training to the Rising Star application, you then are eligible for application. For sonographers, you have to have an active license for 5 years. So there's a little bit more lenience on some of the things, but the actual time from achieving your license is a little bit more strict. After that, you have to documentation of your certification, documentation of your CME hours, supporting letters, your CV, and completed checklist, which is generic for everybody. This is where we get the most questions about the application process. So for a physician, depending on your credentialing, you can get 6 points or 10 points. For pediatric cardiologists, there is no board certification in echocardiography. So for the people who are involved in pediatric echo that did not do a 4th-year training, you get 6 points. For those who did a dedicated 4th year of cardiovascular ultrasound training, they can get 10 points, but it does require a letter from your fellowship director that's in addition to your letters of support, just verifying that you did that 4th year. For all other physician pathways that have a board certification, whether you're an adult cardiologist, a vascular specialist, an anesthesiologist, an intensive care specialist, if you pass the NBE exam with testamer status, you get 6 points. If you pass with diplomat status, you get 10 points. For international members, if you are somewhere where there is a board equivalent test available and you have documentation, verifiable documentation of credentialing, you get 10 points. If you live somewhere where that type of credentialing simply doesn't exist, you get 6 points, similar to the pediatric cardiologist. So for everybody, the next steps are getting the additional points to get you to 12 from the combination of education, research, and volunteering and leadership. So I thought it would be useful just to look quickly at each one. So for education, this one is really the same across the board. If you participate in routine education at your own institution, that gives you 1 point. If you have presented as a faculty at a local or regional meeting 3 times in the last 5 years, it gets you 2 points. And if it's at a national or international meeting, it gets you 5 points. Or sorry, 3 points. It's important to note that's 3 presentations in the last 5 years. So if you're beyond 5 years, you unfortunately don't get credit towards the FASE. And then the other important point that is true for every single one of these is you only record the highest single point value. So if you have regularly performed education at your own institution, you have presented multiple times at local meetings as well as international meetings, you get 3 points. It's not 6 points from the combination of all the above. For research, for physicians as well as research scientists, if you've been a middle author on a peer-reviewed publication, you get a single point. Senior or first author on a textbook chapter gets you 2 points. And then being a senior or first author gets you 3 points. For sonographers, you can get a single point from being involved in research without necessarily having been recognized as an author on the paper. And then when we look at leadership volunteerism, there's different points that can be assigned from involvement with ACE or with local or state level ultrasound societies. So if you volunteer for your own local, regional, or if you're an international member, what we would consider an international ultrasound society, and things such as helping organize talks, giving local speaking that's not truly a national or international ultrasound meeting, but a local talk, securing meeting space, all those kind of things can lead to 1 point. Under volunteerism, if you are involved in outreach screening, so serving general public, underserved population, you can get up to 2 points for that. That does have a requirement that it not be part of your routine work and employment. So if you work in an institution that offers that type of screening, but it's expected of you, we consider that part of your regular work duty. If you volunteer for other ACE activities, such as reviews for JACE, micro-volunteering, advocacy, that also counts towards points, as does serving on any of the ACE committees, the task force, or the councils. If you've served on the editorial board for any cardiovascular journal, that's also considered volunteerism. And then if under leadership, if you're an officer for a cardiovascular ultrasound organization at any level, that can get you 3 points. So just like with the education and the research, you take the highest single point value. You don't add up everything that you do under volunteerism. You then can add up your total points from all the different sections. So if you're a diplomat, you get 10 points. If you have 1 point from education, 1 point from research, you have your 12 points. That's all you need. If you have more than 12 points, you're golden, but you really just have to hit that 12 points with at least 1 point coming from 2 of the 3 categories of education, research, and leadership volunteerism. Once you're sure that you're going to meet the requirements, you then need to solicit 3 letters of support. The key point of the letters of support is having people that you know verify that you're a good echocardiographer, but more important, also stating and verifying that you meet the requirements under each of those individual sections of education, volunteerism, and leadership. For everyone, no matter which track you're applying on, there is a requirement that at least 1 of the 3 letters be from a physician. And the letters can come from a variety of different sources. So qualified letter writers are anyone who currently is a FASE. And if you go to the ACE website, down at the bottom, there is a link that says find a FASE. So if you're uncertain who you know that's actually one, you can go there and search by name, search by state, and find people that you know who might be able to write a letter. In addition, anyone who is an ACE board of director, committee, or steering council member can write a letter on your behalf, even if they don't have the FASE designation. Anyone who serves as an officer of another cardiovascular ultrasound also can write the letter, whether that's at the local or international level or anything in between. And then anyone who is a faculty at an accredited cardiovascular ultrasound training program or a cardiovascular subspecialty training program for physicians or veterinarians can also write a letter, whether they're actual FASE or not. And then finally, the medical director or technical director of any lab or program also is a qualified letter writer. So for people who are currently a student or fellow, unfortunately, you're not able to achieve FASE while you're a fellow in training, but you can get yourself so that you're ready the second you graduate. And in particular, physicians who go into private practice, it's actually much easier to achieve FACE in those first 5 years after you finish fellowship than if you go into a private practice job where you're not active in research and you lose that one potential pathway. So since research is a requirement in fellowship, we really encourage people to sort of think ahead and prepare if you envision being an active member of the American Society of Echo and wishing to achieve FACE. So obviously, while in training, the most important thing is completing your training. But you also should get involved while you're in your training. So you know, people in training can get involved in both educational activities that can count towards their points, but also in research. So you know, any publication you have in the last 5 years, whether it's while you were in training or after training, counts towards the requirements. The other thing that people in training can pay attention to is making sure they're documenting their cardiovascular ultrasound education time. So often in training, you're attending A sessions where you can get CME, but because you don't need it for your license, you don't get documentation of that time. That time still counts towards your requirements. You just have to fill out the paperwork to print out that you participated in a CMB activity. Then make sure you're planning for your boards. You can use various ACE resources to help you prepare, complete your boards, get certified, use your ACE membership to network with people that can help make sure you're getting the volunteering opportunities to meet requirements and secure your letters of recommendation. And then also you have to make sure that you've updated your membership status, because if you're still listed as fellow in training, you're going to get rejected. Make sure you change to Rising Star once you really are. So you never need to panic about the deadline for the application. Every single year we have 6 deadlines. And so if you're planning to apply before April 1st and you just missed the deadline, don't worry. It just means it's going to be a rolling 2-month process before we announce the next people. But your application's fine. Just keep getting stuff in, and as soon as you have it in, it'll meet the next time. So at this time, if anybody has a question or answers, we'd love to go over them.
Dr. Tatum, there is one question in the Q&A. It's asked, as a sonographer working in clinical development at a medical device company supporting EFS, so early feasibility studies, what would be the best approach to completing the checklist, as many things I work on are proprietary and confidential?
So I'll attempt to answer this, but Dallas, as the staff member, may have a few additional points to bring in. But as a sonographer, many of the points are going to just be related to maintaining your credentialing and maintaining CME, getting your letters of support. If you are actively credentialed, that gets you to 10 points. So then you just have to get 2 more points from either educational activities, research activities, or volunteering. As it relates to research that's proprietary, if it's not a published research, generally that's the level of research that we would consider for towards points. But as a sonographer working in research, Dallas would have to answer if that would qualify for the 1 point. And if it qualifies for the 1 point, you just have to have someone who works with you verifying that you've been involved in significant research.
Right. Yes, sir. And I agree with that as well, Doctor. But as well, in the past, I've noticed that individuals coming out of those kind of backgrounds, specifically industry, they use the education option there to attain the points, as well as the leadership as well, because you can still volunteer, and provide some outreach or a screening aimed at underserved populations as well. So it's still definitely possible to obtain the minimum of 12 points. Okay, and it looks like we have another question here. It says, do your letters from physicians have a time limit from when they wrote it? And
Yeah,
okay.
I'm gonna let you take that one.
Okay. So I would say to submit all of the documents pertaining to your application around the time, that you are about to apply. I would not say they have a time limit on them, but I would definitely suggest that all of the letters and documentation be provided at the time that you apply, just to ensure that the information is accurate and as well up to date. But if you attempted to apply last August, you say, but you found out that you were not approved and you would like to apply again, those letters will still suffice.
We have another question that says, I worked as a cardiac sonographer for several years, and I'm now in my 4th year of medical school. I have maintained my CMEs and RDCS, and adult echo and pediatric credentials while in school. Am I still eligible to apply through the sonographer pathway?
I would say yes. I would say you are. Just to ensure that you have been an active ASE member for at least 2 years, as well if you are able to be approved out of education, research, and leadership as well. But according to the information we have here, I believe you will be still eligible. Okay.
Another question that says, seems like it takes a long time for the NBE to diplomat status, 6 to 8 months after all material has been submitted. Can this process be faster?
Unfortunately, that part of it is out of our hands. A lot of people kind of get us, they kind of try to combine ASE with NBE, but we are 2 different entities. So NBE has a process in place as it pertains to obtaining the diplomat status. So unfortunately, we're not able to change or expedite that part of the process. And we have another one in here that says, in the call for volunteers at ASE, I know that existing fellows of ASE are chosen first before non-fellows, making volunteering more difficult. What other ways can people volunteer for ASE if they are not already a fellow aside from the JACE? Also, are there other places you know of to volunteer that you can recommend?
Yes, so that's definitely a catch-22 with the FASE status. So the American Society of Echo definitely does give some preferential status to members of FASE in terms of committee assignments. But committee assignment can greatly help you towards being able to reach that FASE status. So one thing that I would share with everybody, for FASE as well as everything else, American Society of Echo is a great organization with lots of dedicated members. And one of the good things about that is that there are always more volunteers than there are spots. So if you volunteer once and are not selected, don't get frustrated and give up, just apply again. And that will be true no matter what level of the organization you're in. At some point, you're not going to be selected because there's so many great people within the organization, and they're trying to give people opportunities to be involved. So one piece of advice would be apply again. The other is to try to just be involved within ACE without necessarily volunteering, because if you're part of the council and the people in the council get to know you, there are some council representative spots in all the committees that the steering committee has a little bit of input in, And so if they know you and say, this person's kept volunteering, like we need to get them in, it will make a little bit of a difference. And then the other thing is to reach out to staff members. There's not a ton of micro volunteering opportunities, but there are some. And so if at meetings or other events where you see the ACE staff, if you talk to them and express your interest and desire to be able to volunteer, when those micro volunteering opportunities come up, they may reach out to you with those opportunities. Beyond that, depending on where you live, there may or may not be local, state level ultrasound societies. If there are, they typically are looking for volunteers and happy to take people on. If there's not, and you know other people that are active in ultrasound and want more involvement, you certainly can create your own local chapter of a cardiovascular ultrasound society, and that absolutely will get you those volunteer points. Same thing, there's different outreach in communities. So if you're in a larger community, there may be free screening opportunities through the different hospitals, and sometimes they're looking for volunteers, not necessarily just people from their own hospital to volunteer for that. And then ultrasound review. So if you're a physician or sonographer that's asked to review articles, that also counts towards this.
And I would also add, as well, that ASE does offer CEU programs. So we have this available on the website as well if you would like to start your own CEU program at your institution. So you can complete an application and you can, begin your own CEU program there, and that will also count towards the volunteerism. I believe that will provide 1 point as well. Okay. And that takes us to our next question. And it says, I have been a cardiac sonographer for 18 years, and due to COVID, I have been working 7 days a week. Wow. My hospital does not allow us to volunteer in a medical setting because we are employees. What are the types of volunteering that qualify? I can start off here, then I will pass it on to Dr. Tatum or Jennifer as well. But recently, the FASE committee has approved, as well as the exec board, for individuals who have been working in the pandemic. We have offered a point in FASE if you have been a leader at your institution, adhering to the guidelines to keep up with the ever-changing protocols for the COVID pandemic. If you have been a leader, in that realm, or if you have, helped to assist in the change, or to help your institution as a whole to keep up with the changing guidelines and recommendations. So, we understand that you're not able to per se volunteer in person because of everything that's going on. And hopefully that will change very soon with the vaccines and everything. But we are offering a point in that way. And I would definitely say have an individual who is writing a letter of support to put it in the letter if they are at your institution and if they can attest to that fact. Okay.
You can also volunteer in SDMS, Society of Diastolic Medical Sonography. That counts. And then I don't know, Dallas, I know our credentialing board, RDMS, asks for volunteers to write questions for the exams. Does that count? That would maybe count.
It would count.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
I think CCI is the other organization that if there was a volunteer opportunity through them, it would count towards points as well.
Right, right. Okay, we have another question here, and it says, if I have done volunteer work in internationally in 2014 through 2015, am I still eligible?
Yes. So the guidelines for FASE for all the different activities for education, research, and volunteerism, it is a 5-year limit. The board wanted to ensure that people are actively meeting the requirements. So they did set a time limit on all of those activities.
Okay, I think that's all that we have right now, but I have one. We have recently been getting a lot of inquiries in regards to the new exam that has been administered by NBE, which is the critical critical care exam. And so those individuals who are able to pass this exam and obtain the diplomat status, they would ask if that is eligible for the 10 points that it shows on the physician phase checklist. And
yes.
Yep.
Yes. So we definitely do anticipate as more parts of medicine become more involved with cardiovascular ultrasound, that MBE may expand its testing portfolio exponentially. We view any NBE exam testimony status as qualifying for 6 points, and diplomat status as qualifying for 10 points. So you really should view those parentheses as having an EG in front of them. So they're examples of the exams that qualify it. They're not considered limited to those. Similarly, people often ask about international examinations. We've actually reached out to our international committee to try to find out from partnering societies if they're able to help us produce a list of ones that we just checkbox no qualify. But we're not trying to make any kind of judgment about the international exams that are out there. If you have passed an international certification exam that we can verify, we consider that as meeting the points criteria. The checkbox is really just working with our partner organizations to make sure that we're not missing things, really to make life easier on Dallas. If you have a question about if you've achieved some certification and if it will qualify, use that email that I showed earlier and send him a email with exactly what your certification is. Now, the catch is it does require us being able to verify it to give it points.
All right, we have another question, and it says, would passing the ACS exam improve my application for FACE?
Yeah, that's actually a great question, because when you go through the checklist, there is a little bit of variation in the points criteria for how you're applying. And that's one of the things that as I went through the physician checklist, I failed to mention. For sonographers, if you have advanced cardiac sonographer credentialing, it gives you a point towards education. If you are a sonographer who is actively involved in education at your own institution, it doesn't give you an additional point. But if you're a sonographer who is not regularly teaching, it does give you that 1 point towards education. And then if you've volunteered with ASUM, it gets you a 2nd point or 2 points, and with your credentialing, you're to the 12 points. So absolutely, it can be beneficial.
All right, I don't have anything else to ask on my end.
So hopefully people have found the question and answers helpful. Again, Dallas did put the email address up there. So if people have questions that come up as they go through the process, we're here to help you get through it. We want everyone who's active in ACE and wants to achieve the fellowship to find the pathway to get them there.
Unfortunately, we are out of time for today. We would like to thank everyone for participating in today's webinar, and a very special thanks to Jennifer and Dr. Tatum for their time this evening, along with our very own Dallas Lyons. You can register for all live and on-demand webinars in the ASC Learning Hub. I hope everyone has a wonderful evening. Thank you all so much for joining.